Good day, good people. You're listening to Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Carrie Lee, and today we are joined by writer and activist Derrick Broze. Derrick is a writer at Liberty Beat, Intel Hub, and co-host at Local Live Media. You can find him at www.organicgardensforall.com, www.thehoustonfreethinkers.com, and www.theconsciousresistance.com. Welcome to the show, Derrick. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. For those of you that don't know or might not remember, Derrick was featured in our film Unveiled and Lifted, and this is the first time I actually get to speak with him. There's a lot that we can talk about as far as his activism goes and his thoughts on agorism and anarchy. But I think for those that know Derrick, that's something that we're aware of and that we understand. I know that I do, and several of the listeners as well. Today I was hoping that we would talk a little bit more about your path on with shamanic healing and a lot of the different ideas that you have as far as what we're going through as a human collective right now. So let's start a bit about that. Talking about that. You're a very deeply spiritual person. I see how you invoke thought when I read one of your Facebook posts. The latest one that I read was, how do you deal with somebody that you don't like? And I have to ask, when you're writing things like that, because I know I do very similar things. I want people to think and feel at the same time. But when you're doing something like that, is it for yourself, or is it for the whole, or is it for both?
I would say it's a bit of both. There are often times where a situation comes about or a thought pops in my head and it's related to something that I'm personally dealing with, so I'm just throwing it out there to the Facebook collective, the internet consciousness, to see how people feel about it. But there's also a big part of it that is, as you said, driven to invoke thought, to get people to think about things that may not come across their plate in a regular day, working in the machine. So it is a bit of both. There, of course, is a therapeutic value in it for myself, learning about, comparing my thoughts and the way I feel about situations to others and getting some validation in that way, but also hoping to get people thinking about topics that they may not regularly.
And for sure, that's something that you can see really comes through, because a great dialogue almost always begins when you ask people to really reach down deep and answer the questions of why.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see, and I love doing it. It's obviously Facebook and social media, social networks have become more prevalent in everyone's lives, and so I choose to use those things for the best possible way I can, spread information and to get people asking questions at the very least, or and if that makes you feel uncomfortable, which I think sometimes asking difficult questions, reflecting on your own self sometimes can be a difficult process, but it's an important process.
Definitely. We have to come out of our comfort zone in order to expand any of our awareness, right?
Yep.
Now, I was listening today for the first time, which was surprising to me, about an experience that you had a couple years back where you felt a life leave. A man had passed away basically in your arms after an accident, and this awoke something in you. So if you wouldn't mind, just explain that a little bit to people and then tell me where it's led you from there.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. It's something that I don't necessarily consciously think of too often anymore, but it was a very pivotal point in my life. And at that point, almost 3 years ago, early 2011, I'd taken a bike tour from riding my bicycle from Houston to New Mexico, just volunteering on farms and camping out and just learning a lot about myself. And it was later I would realize it was my first shamanic journey of the physical world. And whenever I decided it was time to come home, I was picked up by some friends, and on the way driving back from New Mexico back towards Houston, we witnessed a really bad accident, and I was in the passenger's side, and I was passed out, and I woke up to see the end of this Suburban flipping over and over, and to see a guy thrown into the middle of the median just laying in the grass, twitching about, and there's some people around him. And I went over to go see how things, see what was happening. And this guy had his left arm was bent and his bone was poking out through where his elbow was, and there was blood pouring down his nose, and he looked like he was having some type of seizure, or but he was still conscious in some ways, I could tell. And people were gathering around, people were on their cell phones calling 911, and they said that we needed blankets. So I ran back to the car and I grabbed the sleeping bag that I've been sleeping with for that 3-month period and putting all my energy, all my thoughts and everything into every single night, and wrapped it around this guy. And a lady checked his pulse and said that he wasn't breathing. Another lady ran up and flipped him over and just started, trying to give him CPR, and was just beating down on his chest, and blood was just shooting out of his face, all over the place. And I just fell to my knees. Something just kind of took over me, and I just fell down on my knees right next to him. It was just like, somebody please save this guy. I couldn't really contain. I just started crying. I was just sitting there in front of him, just like praying or doing something. I'm not sure what I was doing at the time, but it was just, just a natural reaction to that for me. And I sat there and just watched this lady trying to save his life, and was just crying my eyes out. And that was, I guess, the moment later I would realize that I was aware that I have, as I believe we all do, that I was becoming aware of my empathic abilities to literally feel other people's emotions. And that was a really big moment, because I felt him leave. I was just sitting there next to him, and he was basically in my hands as this lady was trying to save him. And just something happened where I could just feel him get lighter. I could feel like the heaviness and in some ways the sadness just leave and pick up and float up into the heavens, so to speak. And I just they tried for a few more minutes to revive him, and then eventually they were like, he's gone. And I just laid there for probably 20 minutes. I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't really move, and just it was a really deeply disturbing experience. But I also, I got back in the car after 20 minutes or so, and my friends were there, and we drove up to the next rest stop, and everybody who had just witnessed the accident was there and was just kind of real somber and reflecting on the situation. And I called everybody that I knew that was in my life at that time and just told them like how much I loved them and appreciated them. And I had already been involved with activism with the Freethinkers the year before that, but that when I came back, that was just one other spark that really encouraged me to just take every moment of life and to do whatever I could with it. And so for the past 3 years since that experience, I've dedicated as much time as possible to doing good things and to learning more about myself and trying to understand the reason I do things and to become a better me. And for weeks after that accident, I was seeing him everywhere. I saw his face. I couldn't go to sleep because I kept reflecting and thinking. And at first, I was upset. I was like, "Why? Why the hell did this happen? Like, I don't really want to. I don't want to be seeing you." And I guess I had a conversation of sorts with this guy and realized that for whatever reason that he was going on to his next journey, that our paths crossed at that time for a reason. And I think it was to help me learn some lessons and to help him along wherever he needed to go. And since then, yeah, my life has just been dedicated to even more to activism and to community work and all that connects to. And it's been a really spiritual journey as well, because a couple months later, after that experience, I basically came back to Houston, and before I'd left, I sold everything I'd owned and I quit my job and got rid of everything. And so I came back and I was really just inspired, this really bittersweet feeling of being gone and learning all these lessons while being on the road. And I met plenty of new people. Most of the people I know that are involved in my life now have only known me in this 3-year period. So it's really interesting for me to be back and to do all this stuff. And everybody that came into my life since then has come for a reason. I was having weeks and months where every single night I would meet somebody random, and before I would know it, like, we would have our hands on each other's hearts and just be like connecting and talking like real, like, males, females, all types of people would random. I didn't understand it. And then I went to this moonlight meditation in the summer solstice of 2011 with some friends that I was invited to. And I was talking to another guy who ended up becoming a good friend of mine and is still a friend. and was telling him about this experience. Just, I'd gone on the road and I watched this guy die, and all these synchronicities are happening. I keep meeting all these people. I'm not sure what it means, but people are opening up to me and people are talking to me. And, he told me, he's like, well, you're an empath and you can feel the people and they resonate with that. And so they feel they can open up with you. And it was shortly after that I realized more that I have just opened up a lot more as a person. And that's what was making it easier for people to, people responding with that. I was becoming more open. And so other people were feeling that they could be open with me. And I think that trend has continued in my life, where a lot of people have, through internet activism and through community work, for whatever reason, tend to look to me for guidance in certain ways. And it really humbles me. It's something that I'm not always the best at giving myself positive feedback. So it's something that's new to me and that I'm trying to come to terms with and recognize the leadership that is within me and the reasons that people may want to communicate with me. It's still all really new to me, but it's grown over the past couple of years, and I just try to use whatever audience or voice I have for whatever good I can do, because I think that's a valuable thing. And sometimes we don't understand the ways that we influence other people, and we can end up hurting them and without just with unconscious behavior. It's something that I've experienced in my own life in the past 3 years. I've been trying really hard to do the best that I can do and to continue to learn, and it's a continuous journey, but I'm happy to be on it.
I resonate with those sentiments. It's incredibly reflective. You put something out there because you're feeling it, and somebody reflects back, almost always. We're living in a time of incredible synchronicities, and everything's happening for a reason. As I was explaining to Derrick just a little bit earlier before we started recording, I just recently cut off all my dreadlocks. And I can say something. I know what they stood for. I know why I did what I did. It's kind of a hindsight thing, and I know exactly why I had to cut them off. It's funny because once I put them on, I think I was easier for people to connect to. I don't know if it was the idea that I looked more granola, but I seemed to be more approachable. People were coming to me looking for answers that I even didn't have for myself, but I was getting asked questions that apparently I needed to be asking myself at the same time. I don't question why anything happens anymore, because every time, I'm sure I do in the throes of it, but there's a reason why we're on the path that we are. And something that you said, we all have that ability to be empathic. A lot of us have been so harmed or harmed ourselves so much that we put up these walls so that we can't feel. And I think one of the most beautiful things is being able to allow yourself to start feeling again and to not deny yourself those feelings, because we're all on this journey together. And something that's really important is not denying yourself to feel, and not denying yourself the ability to open up to all of the possibilities. And something that was told to me yesterday is that, we really have to get to this point of truly loving ourselves.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I think that possibly with all of us, that we have different facets of ourselves that are, as you said, hurt in different ways, and we put up walls. And I know for me that the scars were and are pretty deep, but the healing has been deep as well. So as much as I put up walls in the past, it's made it that much easier to open up just as deeply as I heal. And I think that's a powerful thing, to recognize that the pain that we each have. And that's, I guess, my message that I try to push through activism beyond just the physical manifestations of activism, is that we are all, I believe, as a species, as a whole of humanity, we're hurt in different ways, and we are learning to heal. And so as we heal as individuals and we encourage others around us, that only spreads further, and then us as a collective will heal. But I think that it's a deeply personal, individual thing that we have to choose to do. So we can only help everybody by healing ourselves, looking into our own pain and reflecting on it, and moving through those uncomfortable, painful situations so that we can become better. And I know that when I start to take those steps, and the more I do take those steps, that others resonate with that. And after a period of time, we start to have conversations, and they start to want to better themselves or to look in their own selves. I mean, I've seen an amazing amount of people that I never would have thought, who I know in my personal life and just have come to know through the internet, begin to ask me about meditation and will just ask me deeper questions on some of the topics that I talk about. And really, it's all just about self-reflection. And so it makes me happy to see that. And I think it's going to continue to happen. The more of us choose to heal ourselves, it's only going to spread.
I completely agree. And it also seems like we're always on, I want to say, swimming down that same current, that same flow, where you see somebody experiencing something and you find that you're relating to it and you see a synchronicity there. And then you notice, being in social media and on these, Facebook and different sites, you see that it's a general consensus. It's something that a lot of people are feeling all at once. Some people are too afraid to admit it. Some people aren't at that point where they even realize it within themselves. And it gives them that little push that they need. There was a status that you put up at one point that was asking, can you ever stop being an activist? Or something to that effect. And I don't want to say that it's taxing, but we push ourselves, don't we? And we make sure that we're doing it for the whole and for ourselves, and we've just got such a drive. But there are these moments where we're tired. So where were you in your state of mind when you were asking these questions, and what have you learned after, sitting back, taking it all in, and then moving forward?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because I've had that question pop in my mind and talked to Facebook about it and closer friends about that. As far as my state of mind, it comes from a couple different points. For one, for a long period of time, I guess just since I've been back, there's been moments where I'll really question what I'm doing, not the intention or the effect of it. I see the effect of it, and I'm happy of that, and I'm proud that it's working and doing, and that I see effects of it. But it was more like, for me, wondering, as I said to you earlier, before I got into this whole journey, I was just, I was still on this path, but it was before I became really, before that trip, basically. I had been out of lockup for only about a year after getting a felony and dealing with all the prison and legal system. And so I settled into working at a restaurant and living a normal life, and was briefly married and just doing that. And then this trip changed everything for me. And so after coming back and diving in full-time into activism and community activism, into spiritual personal development, I started to wonder what I was if I wasn't an activist. What happens if I stop being an activist? And I don't know what I am anymore. These are the questions that were running through my head, and the thoughts where I was like unsure if, because I just built so much of my life around this. I mean, my life revolves, I live in the Freethinker House, I do this full time, and now I get paid to write, and so it's become my life, and I love that. But in some ways, it's also it challenges me to define further who I am and what I am if I stop being active on the streets or something. But I think that what the response showed with those questions, and what I've kind of come to realize, is that you can never really stop being an activist. Activism is life. Activism is conversations. I often tell people that the evolution is in the conversations. It's in the day-to-day things that you do as an individual to change the bigger picture. So I don't ever really think that, me personally, that I will be able to stop doing something in some variety. Will I always, host live shows or be protesting on the streets or, taking different action? I don't know, because my action has already evolved over the past 3 years to become more community oriented and to be more about the words that I speak and things like that. So I hope that I continue to evolve. But as far as activism and putting out positive thought and promoting action and promoting community, I don't believe that I'll ever be able to stop promoting those things. But it got people thinking, and that's, again, the goal there is to, reflect and wonder. And a lot of people said that they were glad that topic came up, because, there was different opinions. Some people say, yeah, just put it up, give it away, give it up, do other things. Others say there's no way to stop. And I tend to feel that same way, that once you see past the matrix, it's kind of hard to go back. So you can never really turn that off. But I think that, and especially for people as us who are constantly working on new projects, doing new things, and it's nearly impossible not to do those things because there's a fire that just keeps us going inside, that we'll never be able to really truly stop doing some type of work, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's always that spark. We are those, it's the creativity, we're driven by it. We're driven by our passions. And even if we were to stop one aspect of the way that we're activists, wow, I really said that slowly. Even if we stop the way that we're, activists in one way, shape, or form, we're just going to go and live it in another way. It's just going to constantly evolve into something different. There's no stagnation in it.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting to me, is just finding ways to keep from being static, to stay dynamic, and in activism and in all of life. We were talking before about just journeys and new states of mind, and coming into, as you said, with shaving your dreads and just experiencing new things in life. I think that if you continue to look at life as a lesson and as a learning experience, then all the different difficulties and trials and tribulations really are just another part of the journey, and it keeps things interesting.
When you're paying attention, there's such incredible synchronicities. And before the show, I had said to Derrick, at first I wanted to just speak about the idea of, the activism and just promote that. But that's not what this is about. This morning I woke up and I said, no. As activists, we've got to be there for each other. As people in this, as beings in this, as loving, caring individuals, what we're doing is something that we have to remember that we need to heal it, because there's a lot of work here, and there's a lot that is undone within us that we need to, I don't know, I'm not finding the right words right now, but I think that the sentiment is there. I think that the feeling and the overall emotion is there, of understanding that we're at this time where we really have to support each other, and as brothers and sisters in this, that's what we're here and that's what we're doing. So no, this isn't like a typical lifting the veil where we're talking about what our projects are necessarily, but what we're doing as individuals to help each other along and ourselves on that individual level. So when you're finding yourself in this rut, because we all get into it, we always get these moments of lulls where we question or we don't feel satisfied enough in what we're doing or with the response that we're getting necessarily, because sometimes it can be, we expect an awful lot of ourselves, I think, and others. So where do you go in those moments?
Yeah, those are the difficult moments. I was just having this conversation last night that for me, besides just generally meditating and remembering that I first got into activism, into creating change through my own actions, because, well, honestly, first it came out of fear. That was the first few weeks or months or so when I think some of us go through that, like the stages of grieving almost, where you wake up and then you go through a stage of fear, and then so initially I was driven to this by fear, then it was out of a desire to make things better. I just wanted to start finding other people to talk to. So when I remind myself of that, and that I never even thought that I would be someone that people would want to talk to on the radio or on podcasts or on video or anything like that, or that I would have the opportunity that I've had because I didn't do for those things. Myself that got to help and to make things better. Then it's easier to sometimes let the times where maybe you felt, like you said, you put out a lot of energy into a project and maybe it's not as received as you thought it would be, or it's just not the way you thought it would be, different things like that. That you remind yourself that there are bigger things going on here, and that there's so many of us out there. I'm from Houston, and you're in Canada, and I've met people in Denmark and Australia and all over the world who are doing similar things, and each of us together are putting out positive energy. So there's some times where all that work can feel deflating almost, and it can feel defeating whenever you don't feel like you're getting the response that you would like, because as you said, we do expect a lot of ourselves, and sometimes we expect a lot from other people as well, and it can be difficult. But if you stay in the mindset that you're doing something positive, I try to remind people that whenever they may come to me, we're having conversations and they're just saying that, we're not doing enough, or I feel like I can only do this much or that much, and I try to remind them, well, you're doing everything that you can and where you are in your life right now. And that's, I think, what gives me comfort, is knowing that I personally am choosing to use every ounce of myself in my situation, which is a 28-year-old single childless male. I can do quite a bit, and I'm also willing to just deal with certain things. So it's like I want to dedicate my time towards the most positive good I can, and when I remind myself that I'm doing everything that I can within my current situation, then I think that that's really what matters, because at the end of this journey, at the end of this dream, that's what I'm going to choose to reflect on, is the good that I've been able to bring, and also the lessons that I hope that I continue to absorb. I'm not going to really think about YouTube hits and things like that.
It's amazing how much that stuff really doesn't matter. You sit back and you look at, I will say that I've looked at some things and gone, wow, I'm really impressed with how many people appreciated this show, only for the fact that I'm glad that it touched people, because it was important. I felt that it was important work. But on a whole, it's not about that. If you're able to put something out there and even one person comes back to you and says thank you, or you open something up inside of me, or I just realized something, or I forgave myself after this, or whatever it is, even when they're arguing with you, because then you're learning. There's always some kind of learning, and I've always been happy to just reach that one person, because that it's just that ripple effect. It doesn't stop. I've said often that we're conduits to each other, and the energy flows from person to person to person, and we don't cap that. People like us don't cap that. We make sure that that energy continues to flow, and I think that the only time that we don't is when we're being too hard on ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to mention that you like you said, the thank yous. As far as the YouTube hits I mentioned, stuff like that, it does matter in some, as far as, like you said, you can understand, wow, we've reached this many people, and we care, I think, in a different sense than maybe somebody who is trying to get their business product seen by a million people, or whatever it may be. Our product is freedom, and it's ideas, and it's love, and so we care about that, and we want people to be able to see it. So it is a good feeling when we know people are resonating with the message, that they feel inclined to share it. And it's also sometimes in those dark, weak moments that those thank yous really come in, because I know that there's been moments for me where I'm just exhausted, and the simple message that I may receive from someone, about a video, or about, as you said, just a Facebook post, or anything really that you've put time and energy into, and they're thankful for it, or they have, as you said, they have all kinds of neat things to tell you about how it affected their life. That's a powerful experience, and those type of things keep me going.
A lot of the time it's something that you don't expect either. I know myself, I'll put something out there because I honestly feel that there's somebody out there that feels the exact same way as I do, and they just need to hear it, just so that they can be okay with it. I'm not trying to prove that I'm okay. I just want someone else to grab onto it and go, I'm not alone. And when you can do that for somebody, I mean, I don't want it to sound like it's some kind of selfish power thing. It's not. It's just, you can feel that somebody needs that. And I don't know how to put it other than that. Knowing that you've got this like little voice out there that's crying out to you, and I don't mean it even that way because it almost sounds ridiculously dramatic, but we're all calling out to each other. Our souls are desperate to be kin to each other. So when you're making those efforts, it's not going unnoticed. Even if no one says anything, a lot of the time it's just fear holding them back, or some kind of repression holding them back. And I can only say this because I've done it to myself.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and it's a valuable experience, that interaction. And I know that I try to let others that I appreciate, and that their work or their actions and their words resonate with me, let them be aware, because as you said, I think it's a valuable feeling. It's an important lesson to remind others that they are not alone, and that's one of the first, I guess, messages you could say that I was pushing when I got into activism, is reminding people that they are alone, because often when we have the Freethinker monthly meetings, one of the first things that people say when they're new and coming to the meeting, and we get new people every month, is that they felt like they were alone and they didn't have anybody to talk to about whatever their particular concerns are. They tried to talk to their parents or to their friends or their closest relatives and all that kind of stuff, and they were turned away or felt crazy. And so I realized very quickly how powerful it is to let others know that they aren't alone, because I remember feeling like I was alone, and different times in my life where I thought that there was no one there and that it would have just helped to have somebody to talk to. And I really make an effort now to try to be there for someone else in that way.
I so appreciate you. I don't want to keep you any longer than I have. Everybody, I know you're used to longer interviews, but Derrick is an incredibly busy person. And he does amazing works, and he's going out today. It is November 16th. You may not hear this for a little while, but he's going out for the March Against the MSN, and to show people that there is another media out there that is ready to, and has been here ready to help support the people, because the MSN is not supporting the people. We know that it's supporting corporate interests and nothing but fascism, and that's just not where we sit. That's not where our souls are seated. And I'm really excited for everybody that's taking part in this. It's worldwide, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to talk a little bit about that just before I let you go, and we wrap up, let the people know what it is that you're doing today, because I'm sure that it's something that's going to be reoccurring. You can't just do something like this once.
Yeah, I think that it definitely will be a reoccurring event. So the idea for it started back in, I'd say, July or August. I came on after it'd been developed by a couple people, but I started talking with another activist, Nick Burnaby of the Anti-Media. It's a big Facebook page and website that has a lot of views and followers, and we started talking about how impressed we were that the world came together very quickly for no war on Syria rallies within days. They were all over the world, a few months back. And we are also looking ahead and saw that there was going to be another March Against Monsanto, and that there was planned to be a million mask march with Anonymous, and all these things have come to pass now. But we were looking ahead and already seeing that, as you said, the mainstream media, the entity formerly known as the mainstream media, is controlled by a handful of corporations, and they serve those interests. And so we were really thinking that no matter where we march on, the White House or wherever, that the people who are supposedly in power are, as long as the media is not covering it, then nobody's going to hear about it, and they're going to continue to do what they do. So the idea came to shift our focus towards their doorsteps, literally. And so me and Nick started talking about this idea, and we connected with a whole team of other people. There's probably 40 different people who are using several different social networks to make this message spread, and it's really spread in the past week. We've got full day coverage today of Russia Today and a couple other bigger networks. I think Al Jazeera is going to cover it, and of course all the independent, new, alternative media are covering it. And the idea is twofold. First, that we wanted to march on their doorsteps, basically tell people to go to the headquarters of the big stations and to go to your local affiliates of those stations to hold marches, protests, and rallies, but also to spread awareness about the fact that, as you said, that there is already an independent, growing media of podcasts and radio shows and blogs and independent journalism. And this is from the 15 or 16-year-old starting a blog to the more professional people like Ben Swan, and it's everything in between, but it's all valuable and important. And the idea is to show people that there is more than just these couple of sides that the media offers us, and not only to hold the marches, but then to turn people towards new ideas, new resources. So if you go to, and I'm sure it'll still be up by the time you hear this, if you go to www.mamsm.info, there's a map for where all the actions are being held today, and there's also a list of alternative resources that you can check out. to get yourself started on some different ideas. And we're trying to partner with more and more of these organizations so that people will hold marches against the mainstream media, and either they're going to cover the event that's happening right outside their doors, and we're going to get coverage that way, and maybe people will hear our message, or they're going to ignore it again, and we'll use that as a bigger example to say, hey, look, we're literally on their doorsteps around the world, and they won't talk about it. And shift people towards this this new paradigm in media that you and I and many others are a part of. So I imagine that it will happen again, because we started out with just the United States, and it has spread internationally. And I mean, there's messages just pouring in saying, how can I start one in this city? How can I start one in this city? And we're like, well, there's a map. Just go out there with some signs and do it. I think sometimes people expect there to be a real structured plan, but we just threw it out there and hope that people would respond to it, and they have. And that's when it's your turn as an individual to take it and run with it and to make it what it can be.
And to totally be creative with it and do it from a good heart space of love and knowledge, making people aware of what's going on. I am absolutely thrilled to have had the time to talk to you, and I won't keep you any longer. I would like you to do me a favor and tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope that your listeners enjoy this as well. You can find all of my work and everything that I do. It's connected through theconsciousresistance.com. I just launched a live program that airs every Sunday night, 8 to 10 Central, and you can find it at the same website. Just doing similar work to what you do, Carrie, just focusing on topical events, but also a heavy focus on community action and highlighting individuals who are building solutions in Houston and all around the world. We're taking user-submitted videos, and it's a really interactive broadcast, so I hope people will tune in and check that out. And I'm excited to be a part of this journey. So if you resonate with anything that I say, then find me, let's talk, let's continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for coming on today, and I really look forward to the next time, because I know there's going to be a next time. So you go out there and you have a fantastic march to educate the masses and show mainstream media who we are, because we're very loud, and I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. So to everybody listening, remember to love yourself. Remember that we're all in this together, and remember that I don't think there's anything that's going to stop us. The only thing that's going to stop you is you. Don't let you stand in the way of who you are. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, peace.